One. Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Kageyama, and I'd like to welcome everyone here to Be Your Own Hero. I'm a stage 4 prostate, bone, and lung cancer patient, been dealing with cancer since early 2021, doing really well. And I am really excited today because I have a fellow Texan with me on screen, and his name is Bill Tutt. And so what I'd like to do is bring Bill on and have him introduce himself and tell us a little bit about who he is. Bill, the
Hey
stage is
everyone,
yours.
my name's Bill Tutt. I am a stage 4 neuroendocrine carcinoma patient. Uh, Diagnosed back in November 8th of 2018. I'm still actively undergoing treatment. Um, Pretty much medically retired now since May of last year. I have one child, currently going through a divorce, unfortunately, and I'm basically here to just tell my story.
Awesome. Awesome, Bill. I mean, Bill is what exactly type of running do you do? Is it
Just regular running, but I do enjoy doing more endurance level running where I'm trying to go like I got into running last year of January. March of last year, I decided to do an ultra, being a brand new runner. And then April 6th, I ran my first ultra, which was 50 kilometers, but it also combined a marathon in it too, as well, since I've never done a marathon before either.
wow, that is great. I just love hearing stories where people in spite of cancer, they still want to live and still want to do things. And so my hat's off to you. So that's absolutely fantastic. So let's start off with the beginning of your cancer journey, Bill, and share with us how it all started.
So pretty much, brand new father. I was starting to have blood in my stool, which was recurring back and forth for about a month or two. So at the time, I was recently laid off from my job at a company. So I was basically more focused on getting a job so I could basically get healthcare benefits. So I quickly picked up another job and had benefits day one, thankfully. And then I went to my GP and I was basically bringing up my symptoms. He basically told me it was hemorrhoids, but I told him, I was like, this has been going back and forth for quite some time. And I was pushing him, I was like, this is not hemorrhoids. So he orders some blood work, a CT scan, and then I go do my scan. And when I have a follow up with him, he basically tells me nothing showed up on the CT, that you're fine. Um, so that basically made me more curious because it was like there has to be something wrong. So I went to my rheumatologist because I have something called spondyloarthritis, which is an autoimmune condition. So I bring it up to him, same exact symptoms. I asked him, I was like, does this have anything to do with that? He said no, so he referred me to a gastroenterologist. He schedules me for a colonoscopy, and when we do our colonoscopy, he finds a 6 centimeter tumor in my rectum. And when I wake up, he tells me that I need to start chemo right away.
So what was going through your mind when he told you that?
Well, 3 words were like, what the fuck? Really? I was like, I'm sorry if I can't cuss on your show.
It's
But
okay.
it was one of those things where I was like, really? I was like, I'm pretty young. But it was one of then he basically set me up with an oncologist. So I basically go through the motions, and then the following week I get the pathology. So it says neuroendocrine carcinoma. So of course, once I get confirmation of the type of cancer it is, I start Googling everything. Um, I understand how to research all this just because I did come from oncology. And I was basically speaking with some of my friends who were basically within in the field and industry, and they're like, "This is not good. This cancer is not a good cancer to have." And then I reconfirmed it with all the papers I was reading, where there are not enough treatments out there. There's an unmet medical need for additional treatments, poor prognosis. Um, Typically, patients are very lucky to get past 12 or even 24 months. So I'm very grateful that I am still here. I'm entering my seventh year right now, but it does come with uh, collateral damage just because when you've gone through as many treatments as I have in just less than 7 years, there's a lot of trauma that's involved in that just because psychologically, physically, the amount of damage that cancer drugs do to your body, it's just indescribable to some people just because what you see in the TV is somewhat true, but there's also the invisible disease of being a cancer patient because if I walk out and go to the grocery store or anywhere else, no one would think I'm a cancer patient. The people I run with or cycle with, they never thought I was a cancer patient when I first met them. They're like, oh, he's just a normal guy. But until they hear my story and then they see what I go through, then their minds are blown.
Wow. That is so true. So when you got diagnosed and you thought those immediate thoughts, what shifted you to say, I'm gonna fight this thing with everything I had? How long did that take for that to kick in?
Pretty quickly, actually, just because it was one of those things where I've always loved challenges. And then I've always lived by the words prove me wrong. So I was like, it's one of those things where I was like, the mindset's gonna take me as far as it can. But at the same time, if I'm gonna die from this cancer, I'm gonna give it a pretty good fight where I'm still in it right now, but I know eventually I've come to terms with the fact that I will die from this cancer, but it doesn't mean that I'm gonna die willingly.
I love that. I absolutely love that. That is absolutely fantastic. Prior to getting starting the recording, you talked about uh, Western and Eastern medicine and your thoughts on that. Can you elaborate on that for us, please?
I feel that Western medicine, we've grown accustomed to taking a pill, taking a shot to alleviate a symptom. A lot of the things that we do in Western, it's very reactive, whereas things that are done on the Eastern side, they holistically see food, plants, herbs, movement. That's all medicine. Where I've combined the two, where it's helped me become resilient as I am to the treatments that I've undergone so far.
That is absolutely fantastic. And talk about your diet. We were talking about it before we got on. Uh,
Well,
you, Go ahead.
so I'm a majority plant-based. I've been plant-based for about, I'll say about a little over 4 years now. And I was playing around with diets majority of the time where I was just eating normal in the beginning just because I was just losing weight so fast. And then I started going more towards a ketogenic diet where it did help, but it was just way too restrictive at times. And then I started playing with fasting with my chemotherapy treatments where I did notice substantial elimination in terms of side effects. And
Really? Hmm.
I did I'm fairly transparent with my team where Hay's like, hey, I'm gonna try this out. I was like, and they weren't very receptive in the beginning, whereas like we don't want you to lose weight. And I basically gave him all my literature that I've read. I also told him, I was like, well, let me do this for one cycle. You take my weight, you take my vitals every time I come in here, and I'm here fairly frequently. Let me do this just to see if it helps. And I basically created a better relationship with my physicians just because like it's all patient really if you're gonna lie and hold things from your physician, they're not going to be able to help you when something bad happens because they don't know everything that you're doing. So when I was doing that, I noticed that because I would fast for about 72 hours before treatment. And when I did that, I noticed that I didn't have any nausea. I didn't have any diarrhea or any of those other things. I had the neuropathy, of course. I don't think I could have avoided that, but I was more resilient to basically whatever they threw at me.
I have never heard that before. And I've heard so many people talk about that. And to hear you say that, that's fascinating. How did you figure out to do that?
So I read a lot of papers from Walter Longo over at USC. He's a longevity expert, but he's done a lot of papers on fasting and cancer treatment. And when I was reading into that, I was like, well, I read that from his papers, it said that you have reduction of symptoms, but at the same time, you actually make your chemotherapy more, it works better in terms of treatment. And I do
Really?
believe that because I had less side effects. My cancer, which is typically very aggressive, was basically shrinking. It was actually stabilizing. Stabilized for 8 months to a point where I was able to get my surgery.
So after you fasted and you had your chemo, I mean, did you start eating right after you had your chemo, or when did you start incorporating, back into your diet after chemo?
Pretty much I would eat something high. So just because my chemo, I would basically be home late at night anyway. I would just go to sleep. I would just make sure I drink a lot of fluids and go to bed. And then the next morning I would eat something.
Okay. Wow. I love that. I mean, I learned something new. I'd never heard that before. I never.
Well, it also kind of helps. Well, when you also think about it, it's like if there's nothing in your system, you can't really
Mhm.
throw anything up.
That's true. Oh, that's so true. Uh, I mean that is fascinating. Great. I mean that is great advice for anybody going through treatment for sure.
Well, when you also think about it, look at all of religion. Fasting is a part of practically every religion that we know of,
Right.
and it cleanses you. It helps you think more clearly, but at the same time, it could also heal you.
Absolutely. Let's talk about uh, your mindset as an athlete and how it helped you approach cancer.
So exercise, I didn't really recognize how important movement was with my cancer treatments until with the majority of cancer treatment, they'll always dose you with high dose steroids in the beginning, just to basically make sure that the side effects aren't as bad and everything. But one of the horrible side effects of those steroids is insomnia. So I'm one of those types of people that I can't sit still. I need to move. So at the weirdest times of the day, like like I'd be walking around the hospital or around the neighborhood just because I can't sleep. I was like, I was the type that I was like, if I just lay in bed, I'm just gonna have a lot of dark thoughts. So moving was basically my therapy in terms of, okay, I will not think about this. I'm gonna do something to keep my mind occupied. It later progressed to riding a bike, getting a bicycle. I just bought a cheap bicycle. I bought a cheap bicycle off of Facebook. And then my dad started noticing that I was starting to ride a bike. He asked me, he's like, "You want me to ship you the road bike?" So he ships me his road bike, and then that's when everything started in terms of doing activity where I'm fasted at the same like it got to a point where after chemo, I would basically walk or I would just hop on the bike and go like 30, 40 miles
Wow. After chemo.
through chemo.
Wow. That's amazing. Did you hear about the I forgot his name, name escapes me. Did you hear about that Chicago White Sox reliever who uh got diagnosed at the beginning of last season with stage 4 cancer?
Mm-mm.
And he was he during the summer he was right after chemo, he'd be out in his backyard pitching. And he said, I'm gonna come back real shortly and pitch for the White Sox. And it was a big story. Uh,
Yeah, it I will not lie where doing any sort of activity, exercise after chemotherapy, it's one of the hardest things to do. But when you do it, you feel so accomplished, but at the same time, you feel so much better. But it also eventually builds a base where you could grow upon. Just because I just got treatment on Thursday, and then I had to get more treatment on Friday, and then Saturday I ran 10 miles.
wow,
So I
that's
was like,
fantastic.
it it's one of those things where I was like, I view movement as medicine, but at the same time, it allows me to detox the drugs out of my system.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. It's great to sweat it out. And the only way, the quicker you do that, the better off you are. So that's absolutely fantastic. Uh, so talk more about further about your mindset and how uh, doing what you do, you started running af just a short while ago, really. Uh, how that has helped you focus and overcome your cancer, and how it's helped you.
Well, I haven't overcome my cancer yet, but in terms of exercise helping me with it, um, it's not a surprising thing to hear where majority of cancer patients get depression.
Hmm.
But I I I remember hearing from Adam Grant, who's a psychologist, where your mood follows action. So if you allow yourself to get into a depressive episode, you're only going to have actions that follow that mood. But if I basically use that mood and follow up with an action such doing something that is positive, such as exercise, journaling, um, having gratitude for things, these are actions that will help me get out of that funk, but at the same time, give myself something positive to my body.
We are our own computer programmers of our minds, and whatever
Well,
we feed is what's going to come back. Go ahead.
yeah, majority of the things that we're anxious about are just part of our imagination
Mhm.
because most of the time it doesn't come into play, where it was all the imagination that basically causes us anxiety. Where if you surrender yourself to control what you can control and not think about things that you can't control, then you'll have a better outlook in life. You'll be a lot happier.
I could tell you are a very, very cerebral person, and you've analyzed. a lot of these different aspects very thoroughly. And yeah, talk about that because that is fascinating to me.
Repeat that?
You're seem to be to me to be a very cerebral person, and you don't just um, take things on a whim. You digest and you really analyze things. Talk about that, how it's helped you with your situation.
Um, in the beginning, I had a lot of bad anxiety about a lot of the decisions I would have to make in life. But when I first started, because I've always worked in industries where I worked in sales, I worked in consulting where I'm always client facing, but at the same time, when you do client facing, you also have to manage your emotions, but at the same time, expectations of the other side. It comes into play when you deal with certain challenges in life as well, where I read a lot of books on stoicism, and then I started really leaning towards a lot of endurance athletes in terms of what they of their books, just because a lot of a lot of endurance athletes go through a lot of trauma where they use their exercising as a way of therapy, but at the same time to have a an environment where all the distractions are removed, where you could think clearly, but at the same time, there's nothing that is in your way to basically disassociate your mind, but at the same time, influence your thinking. It's just you and you by yourself.
That is, I'm always fascinated because uh, I used to consider myself to be an athlete, all my life. Prior to cancer, I worked out 4 to 5 times a week, every week for decades, and I was in great shape. And so at that point, I thought I was indestructible. But then COVID came and I wasn't able to go to the gym and I wasn't able to, because used to really push my workouts. And so as a result, I wasn't able to get the exercise that my body needed outside of the gym. And so it's just fascinating to me when I talk to other people that are into sports and the mindset that comes with it, how how it affects their whole life. So talk about that. Has your mindset as a runner transitioned into your being who you are essentially?
Mm, I don't think it's really changed that much, to be honest. It just shows that it just reinforces the fact that I'm committed to doing what I need to do. Just because I've I brought this to another person where they're like, why do you do endurance events where you're a cancer patient, you're going through active treatment, and you're literally a walking liability, which I totally agree with. But at the same time, it's like I don't ever want to say those words, I quit, just because life is beautiful, and it's one of those things where it's like the suffering that you go through, there's always going to be someone that you could compare to that is going through something worse, but they do
Oh
see the
yeah.
light. So I know that being in cancer support groups, you hear the worst stories. And when you read those words, it's like, dude, you look at your own situation, and it's like my situation isn't that bad. I was like, I have a roof over my head, I have food on the table, I have a bed to sleep in. I could still get treatment, which I'm grateful for. So I have everything that I need. But at the same time, I understand when I do certain activities, there's also an aspect of humility just because I can't do what I did before I got diagnosed with cancer, but it doesn't mean that I can't put all the effort I want into it.
I
Um,
love that.
people are always going to compare you. It's like comparison is the thief of joy. And I'm not kind of trying to compare myself to anyone. I was like, I am my own um challenge. So if I could better myself each time, I'm happy with that. I was like, most runners who want to run, they want to basically go the fastest. I was like, what a 6 minute mile is the same thing as a 14-minute mile. That's just the way I see it. As like people who go to the gym, I used to be a personal trainer too. I was like, why would you make fun of someone who's trying to improve themselves?
I just love a lot of things that you're saying. I mean, that's absolutely fantastic. How has cancer changed your life?
Before cancer, I was very, what's it called? What's the best word? Um, I'm having a brain fart. I was very impatient. But after cancer, just because you're forced to wait on hospital appointments, scan results, blood work, you're constantly waiting for decisions. And you're forced to slow down a bit where you need to understand that things are out of your control and just do things that you enjoy to keep your mind off of things. I've become a lot more patient, but at the same time, I've done a lot of stupid things where I was like, okay, you don't learn until you do stupid things and you're able to reflect and it's like, okay, if this situation happens again, I won't do that again. So I was like, the time will be the best teacher.
That's great. Great answer. So you have a 7-year-old daughter, is it?
Hmm.
What what would you want to leave as the biggest impression on your daughter as far as what you're going through?
I want her to know that her dad was a good person, that her dad did his best. At the same time, his dad is not perfect. He's made mistakes. He's learned from his mistakes, and he will continue to do as much good as possible in this life until he passes. And that she should understand that he loves her with all his heart.
That's beautiful. I love that. I absolutely love that. And I'm sure she knows that as well. Um, my I have two daughters. One's 39 and one's 29, and there were the main reasons why I had to fight so hard. My oncologist, when she gave me my diagnosis, she basically said, "You're not going to be around for very long." And I suggest you get your affairs in order. And I just said, that's not in my plans. That's your plans. But that's not happening for me. I'm going to live. And, if you help me, great. If you don't, I'm going to find a way. And so I'm eternally grateful to all the people that I've met along this journey who've helped me. You've helped me a lot. I mean, I'm learning a lot from you, and that's the beauty of and the privilege and the honor that I have as interviewing people all the time. I started this channel back in 2021, and I've posted a new uh, video every single week, and I haven't missed since I started.
That's
And
amazing.
I consider it to be an absolute honor and privilege. to have met the people that I have met. I mean, I have friends of mine. One lady, her name is Christine Handy. She's a former Victoria's Secret model. Just one of the most incredible people. In fact, she's got a full-length feature film coming out soon. And so, Terry Tucker, and uh, and I met a lot of authors. I mean, so many people I meet are authors of multiple books. In fact, I just posted an interview with a lady named Lori Williams today, and she's a multiple best-selling author. So I've had the opportunity to meet so many people from so many different walks of life, but the thing that really touches me is the spirit of people who've made it and who are continually fighting. It's a beautiful thing. So I have one final question. Well, one last thing for you as far as pertaining to what we've been talking about. What would you like to leave our audience with as far as what you feel is the most important thing?
Take care of yourself, just because we live in a world where there's so many expectations to be this type of person, but we forget that trying to be that person that society wants, we destroy ourselves to a point where we forget about our health. That is my biggest recommendation, just because I was so fueled by getting to this level in work, getting to this level in that. There's no point in that, just because your health is wealth. And I truly realize that now, just because I am no longer healthy. Most people think I am, but I am no longer healthy in comparative standards, where I have another 39-year-old that I talk to, and I'm horrible compared to they are if we compare our health charts.
I totally get it. I totally get it. That's absolutely fantastic advice. So one final question for you, Bill, and we're going to wrap this interview up. We live in a very divisive world right now. And if it was left up to you, how would you help make the world a better place?
Take all the divisiveness out and just be kind. As like
Very,
you're always going to meet people with varying opinions, but it doesn't cost anything to be kind.
I love that. Absolutely love that answer. Bill, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your knowledge, and you have so much to share with people. And so I appreciate you so much for spending the time with me to talk about your journey and continued success, and keep getting better and keep running and doing all the things, and you know congratulations on your daughter, and I know she's going to be growing up, and you're going to be teaching her, and she's going to be proud of what you're doing. So thank you so much, Bill. Really appreciate it. And
All
thank
right.
you to everyone out there for joining us here at To Be Your Own Hero. And remember, life is short. Life is very short, and we only go around once. So make the most out of each and every day, each and every hour, each and every minute, and each and every second. Have a great week, and we will see you next week back here on To Be Your Own Hero. Thank you very much. And last commercial, please like, subscribe, make a comment in the comment section of the video, and we will see you next week. Thank you very much.